All right, we're recording now. Sorry. All right, so make sure you have these 10 things. Make sure you have these 10 things. We've already gone over a couple of them. All right, let's do commercial farming real quick. None of you guys have that on your poster, but Shivani was talking about it. Let's go here. You guys see that? Is that useful?
Oh,
No?
I can't read it.
Okay. All right, that's not gonna work. All right, so commercial farming. Oh, I'd have to unshare the screen. All right. Commercial farming, the real things that we need here is the cotton gin causes the rise of cotton growing in the South. That's our first big shift, is the South is going to become wall-to-wall cotton, basically. Cotton is going to become the most important commercial product in the world, basically. All right, that's shift number one. Shift number two is that they're going to start closing down little family farms and start to create larger, big farms owned by companies. That's where Shivani was saying the movement away from subsistence agriculture to commercial farming. That would go here. All right, let's deal with our transportation stuff. Luke, this isn't your poster, but Luke, you were doing canals in class. So let's have you talk about canals.
Okay, so pretty much like they were important because they decreased the amount of cost it took to transport stuff over land from like $100 a ton to $8 a ton, which that made it so food was cheaper in places and it could get to places faster. This like, since the Erie Canal is important, if I'm posted easy, but so it could, we could get food from places with like actual farmland to New England. So in places like New England, they didn't need to do subsistence farming anymore because they could get food from other places, which then led to the more people working in the factories and increased the industrial revolution.
That's perfect. All right, the two things I want from canals. Number one, canals are the cheapest way to transport things by a really large margin. The cheapest way to transport things. And it's way, way, way faster. Okay, roads sucked so bad at this time period. Okay, you could have goods, if you think about like, picture Pennsylvania in your mind, you could have goods in Pittsburgh and then you transport it to Philadelphia. It would take more than 30 days to transport it across just Pennsylvania. It was actually faster to transport goods from Pittsburgh onto the river across Ohio to the Mississippi River, all the way down to New Orleans, reload it onto an ocean vessel, go around Florida, back up to Delaware, load it again onto a cart, and then transport it from Delaware to Philadelphia. That only took 3 weeks. Okay, so this tells you how bad this is. So number one, canals are by far the cheapest way to do this. They basically just connect existing rivers. Number two, the Erie Canal. Luke said the Erie Canal, but I want to emphasize the Erie Canal. The Erie Canal is the most important canal in the nation. All right, Erie as in like Lake Erie. Where is it, Luke? What state?
Upstate New York.
Yep, upstate New York. It connects Lake Erie to Albany, New York, which then connects to the Hudson River to New York City.
And then I looked it up and it was like, it made $124 million in returns.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised it's not more. Yeah, the Erie Canal was so much money. Well, $124 million back then, considering our annual budget would have been something like $100 million for the whole country. So that gives you an idea, right? The Erie Canal is making something like 5% of the annual budget every year. Yeah, so it's a big deal. It's a big deal. All right, Eric, can you present one of these ones?
Sure. Which one?
Well, I'm not sure what you did on your poster. So can you tell us about the American system?
Sure.
All right, let's do that one.
Okay, so Henry Clay proposed an idea where he had like 3 modes of action that they could take to help the government be more involved in the economy. So first, he said that we should establish a tariff on foreign goods to help encourage American businesses.
Okay.
And the second one, he said he wanted to make a federal bank or reopen it, I guess.
Yeah.
And thirdly, he wanted to have subsidies so he could make roads and stuff.
Yeah, that's correct. All right, I would say that what you listed as number 3 is probably the most important thing. Okay, so the American system, the two big parts of the American system we need is number 1, tariffs on foreign goods. So it's meant to try to protect American workers. So you make all foreign goods more expensive. He basically wanted a tariff on everything coming from other countries. Okay, number 2, then this one I think is probably the most important, is that for the very first time, he proposes that the government pay for big projects, things like the Erie Canal. And so the federal government will start paying for it. Prior to this, the government would never pay for it. They would say, that's New York's canal, make New York pay for it. And now Clay says, if New York is making money, then America's making money. So he doesn't have a problem taking money from all the other states and giving it to New York to build the canal. This is the first time that this is going to happen. All right, this actually connects to the other one we have on here, government action. What did I call it? Government action or government, what did I call it?
Role of government.
Role of government, yeah. All right, under role of government, let's put 2 things in here. Okay, the first one is that the government for the very first time starts building local projects. This includes things like roads and canals and railroads, local projects. And then the number 2 thing we need on here is this establishes the marriage between the US government and businesses. Because what they're doing is you'll have like a private train company who wants to build a train track. The government will pay for it. In exchange, the train company will pay a certain percentage of their money back over time. Right? So people oftentimes, this is going to multiply over time, right? People oftentimes will complain that the US government is spending too much money on projects. This happens all the time, where people will be like, why are we spending money on this, Wi-Fi connection in rural Mississippi, right? Well, we spend California and New York money on rural Mississippi because by elevating rural Mississippi up, they start to make money and then it buys back into the system, right? People will say this all the time. The space race very famously is like a waste of money, right? Where they'll build like a big space project, right? And so people will be like, what the hell's going on? Why do we have a giant telescope in space? Like that's lame, that's stupid, right? But the telescope in space is owned by the government so that every aspect of it is making money, is all making money for the government, right? So the telescope itself doesn't make money. What makes money is the like processes and factories and goods that you had to invent in order to make the telescope, right? There's one example, the telescope is a really good example, that the federal government funded a computer program that the telescope was collecting so much data, it was a computer program that could basically crunch data. Today, we call that Microsoft Excel, right? And so the government funded the creation of Microsoft Excel, and then Microsoft bought it off of the government and made a cajillion dollars off of it. It's the basis of like all accounting and business today, right? And so just that one computer program that cost the government relatively little amount of money created something like $43 for every dollar the government spent, right? Henry Clay understands that in this very early stage where he says, yeah, the Erie Canal is going to cost us whatever, $100 million or something, right? But it's going to make $200 million in the future. Or whatever, I made that number up, but you get the idea, okay? All right, Alicia, what were you working on? What was your group?
We had mechanization.
Okay, Shivani already talked about mechanization. Is there, was there anything that she missed that you wanted to add?
I won't say anything she missed, but I really liked learning about like textile production
Yeah.
and mechanization, like sewing machines and factories, working on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. All right. What else? What other category are we missing? What have we not done?
Railroads.
Oh, railroads. All right. I'm gonna go to my slides for this, and we haven't done women yet. I'm gonna do that on my slides. If I can find my slides. If I
We also need roads.
and roads. Okay. There we go. All right, let's go to my slides. Okay. All right. We'll do railroads and railroads in a minute. Let's get another big idea here. The big idea connected, you can like put it on the side or put it on the top where you have space. The biggest thing that you need to understand about the market revolution is that the market revolution is the very first time that people are leaving home to go to work. That prior to this, everybody worked at home all the time. If you wanted a product of some kind, you had to make it yourself. If you wanted new shoes, you needed to make new shoes. If you wanted a BLT sandwich, you better plant some lettuce and plant some tomatoes and plant some grain and grow a pig, because you're not going to get a BLT sandwich unless you have those things, right? If you want that, you have to make it. For the very first time in world history, people are leaving home to get money. Right? I'd be willing to bet all of you have parents that leave the home to make money. Right? Well,
Not anymore.
in non-COVID, in the non-COVID world, right? In the non-COVID world, you're all leaving the house to make money. And even if you're staying home, like maybe you're a computer programmer or something, you're still getting paid as a wage, right? From a company, usually. All right, so that's the first big change. The second big change is that this is the first time that we have a cash-based economy. Prior to this, in time period, most transactions were like bartering for things, right? So I would say something like, my daughter's getting married. I want to make sure she has a really nice dress. I don't really know how to sew very well. So I go to Shivani. Shivani knows how to sew really well, right? And so I'll say, Shivani, you make the dress and I'll provide you with, eggs and milk from my farm, right? And we come up with some deal, some amount of eggs and milk or whatever, right? Over time, I provide you eggs and milk for the whole year, and in exchange, you sew my daughter a wedding dress, something like that, right? Prior to this, somewhere around like 3/4 of all financial transactions were just bartering for goods. Most people, money existed like it's a concept, but most people would go their entire life without ever having their hands on money. Like they just yeah.
Does the bartering system include like trading like gold coins or something?
Yeah, sometimes, especially when you go out west, when we have like a lot of mining communities, like discovering gold, like in California and stuff, where people would be like trading like sacks of gold dust and stuff like that. Yeah, we'll get to that when we start moving out west. It's really common out west. It's less common in the East Coast, Okay, so this is our first thing there. Let's deal with, here's a really cool picture of the canal. If you guys have ever figured out how canals work, right? Do you guys know what the lock system of a canal is? Have you ever seen that before? Yeah, Alicia, can you explain how it works?
Yeah, I saw one in Seattle once.
Yeah.
Where like when the waters are different levels and they bring the boat in on one and they like close it off and then they like drain the water into the other one so they're level. And then they open it so the boats can go into the next one and then they lower it so it's the level of the next one so they can go out to some other ocean or whatever.
It's pretty cool, right? And so the result is that you're sailing uphill, right? Like it functions like a staircase, basically, right? The boat comes in and then the water fills up, glug, 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 and then the boat moves to the next one, glug, 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 boat moves to the next one, or it goes down the stairs the same way. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Like it takes a while to do it. To go the length of the Erie Canal, to go the 100 miles of the Erie Canal, it would take like, 2 or 3 days to go all the way through it. But that's a lot better than 30 days going all the way around Florida, right? Or, so it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Under roads, let's go under roads here. Roads suck really, really bad. The first road that the United States pays for is what we call the National Road. And it goes from Cumberland, Maryland to Wheeling, West Virginia. Cumberland, Maryland to Wheeling, West Virginia. Here it is. Here's eventually what if you can see it on there. There you go. That's eventually what it is. In the very beginning, it's just this one part right here, right? It's this one part right here, which was like the most vital road in the country because it's going over the Appalachian Mountains. So it's connecting our the East Coast to the frontier. Eventually, we'll make this road going all the way out to here. And then eventually we'll connect New Jersey to New York, right? From New York down to Philadelphia, from Philadelphia to Washington, D.C., and from New York up to Boston. Today we call that I-95. And today we call this I-80, right? But this is the very first roads. All right, let's go back to here. Okay. Railroads, let's deal with railroads. All right, so the most important thing we need to know about railroads is in the beginning, the trains look something like this. First of all, they didn't, the trains look something like this. The trains actually caused this huge cultural shift because it actually causes this like religious revival because people are like freaking out about the trains. They're worried that the trains go so fast that angels won't be able to catch you if you die, right? And like people are like arguing that this is like an affront to God, that you are offending God by moving this fast. And they'll be like, God never intended man to move 18 miles an hour, right? If God had intended you to move 18 miles an hour, God would have made you a bird, right? And so they would say, you are challenging God and you're insulting God by moving faster than God has told you to move.
And now we're going like 600 miles an hour.
Yeah, well,
airplanes.
So that's the first cultural shift is that it kind of scares people because these things are moving, right? It also brings the industry to the rural areas because most people in little towns have never seen a big giant machine. They've never seen it before. They don't know what a steam engine is, and now this thing's rolling through your town. This big giant hunk of metal, a big piece of metal that you've never seen anything this big before, and it's loud and it's hot and it's spewing black smoke everywhere, right? So it brings the Industrial Revolution to rural America. The last thing that we need on here is that this is what creates time zones. Prior to railroads, every single town had their own time. You'd be like, Salt Lake City would say, oh, the sun's coming up at 7 o'clock, right? And Denver would say, oh, the sun's coming up at 7 o'clock, right? Every city would have its own time. And so you'd have a situation where like New York thinks it's noon, but Philadelphia thinks it's 1, and Washington thinks it's like 12:30, and Baltimore thinks it's like 12:45, right? And they're all at the same time. This isn't a big deal in a world where it takes you 30 days to move to the next city, right? But as soon as that train gets it to a point where you can go from Washington, D.C. to New York in like 4 hours, it becomes a real problem because I need to know I'm going to be able to make my afternoon appointment, right? If I have a lunch appointment with somebody at 3 o'clock, I need to know that when I arrive in New York, it won't already be 4. I need to know that I'm going to arrive at 2. That way I can meet the person at 3. And so the railroads basically just decide what time it is. And the railroads say, we don't care what the city says, the time is this. And once they do that, all the cities just start following. This is how we get time zones. Time zones are the length of distance that a train can travel in one day. And then that's how you know that there's a different time zone. That's kind of true. It's not 100% true because people negotiate the time zones later on. You know, different states say we want to all be in this time zone, stuff like that. But that's generally what it was. Is it's the length of distance a train could cover in a day.
Didn't like this idea start in England?
I didn't hear what you said, Luke.
Wasn't this like starting in England mostly though? Because that's like,
Yeah. So it starts in England. The trains are invented in England and they start over there. But the United States is the first place to get time zones like that.
okay.
Because we're the first ones moving across a really big space, right? Most of the European countries are one time zone,
Mhm.
right? So we're the first ones having to come across time zones across the whole country.
Mhm.
Okay, so let's deal with women. This is our last one that we're going to do. And this is tied to the reading of the week, the cult of domesticity. Okay, so the role of women is going to create a cultural backlash. This one's really important. It needs more than just a couple of bullets. I have another 12th grader coming in, logging in right now. All right, 12th grader. Hey, Wentao. Well, anyway, when he connects. All right, so, hey, Wentao, this isn't your class.
Oh,
Yeah, you're meeting tomorrow, man.
whoops.
Yep, no worries. I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, see you tomorrow.
Nice, we got 2 today. All right, so what are we doing? Oh, because remember I told you guys in the beginning of the year that we have these cultural shifts, right? We go really far to the left with the Enlightenment, and so we swing really far to the right with the Great Awakening, right? We swing really far to the left with electing Barack Obama, so we swing really far to the right with Donald Trump, right? So we always are swinging back and forth between these things all the time. It's like a pendulum. Well, this is also a pendulum. The market revolution is pushing us way over here where there's lots of change. So women get pushed back over here towards tradition. That's what the cult of womanhood is called, or the cult of domesticity. Both names mean the same thing. Okay, so what this is an idea that women need to have these 4 virtues. In order to be a true woman, you must have piety, purity, submission, and domesticity. If you don't have one of these, then you are not a true woman. Okay, so piety means religion. You have to have religion. Purity means that you have to be honest and good and no sleeping around. Submission means you have to do what your husband tells you to do. And domesticity means that you have to manage the home, manage the sphere of home. These are all linked to the idea that men and women should have separate spheres. We have this concept that everyone in the past was just like really sexist, and that the further you go back, the more sexist you become. And that's not true, actually. Prior to the market revolution, the country was actually a lot less sexist. The market revolution makes us more sexist. It increases the sexism. And that's because people are working outside of the home. As soon as men start working outside of the home, men come up with this brilliant idea that there are separate spheres, that men control everything outside of the home and women control everything inside of the home. Okay, this is where we get the concept that, like, you know, the woman should be home. She should be home with the kids. She should be at home with the kids. That's this concept that women should be. Prior to this, everyone worked at home, right? And so husband and wife were viewed as equal because, yeah, maybe she's taking care of the kids, but he's taking care of the livestock, right? Either way, they're both handling poop and milk, right? either way, they're both handling poop and milk, right? But you're not different, right? You're both in the field growing food. You're both, you know, harvesting food in the fall. You're both planting in the spring. You're both building the house, right? Like, he can't put a new roof up if she's not helping him, right? They're both doing it. And so that equal nature there was a lot more close to equality. Once the men go out of the home, then the men start to think, oh, women need to be home, they need to be with the kids. And then they start getting the concept that working at home isn't work, right? We start getting this idea that work equals salary or work equals wages, right? As opposed to the idea that work equals time. Now, of these virtues, which one is the most important, do you think? In this concept of how women should be. And Nico, what do you think? Which one's going to be the most important?
Domesticity.
No. What do we think?
Beauty,
Piety.
piety.
Why do you think it's piety?
Well, from the reading, it says that when you fall in line with God, you'll fall in line with the other three.
Yeah. So piety means faith to God, right? And if you're in line with God, then you'll do everything else, right? God told women to act properly, so they will act properly, right? There's also another concept to it. The concept is that women are more holy than men are. Women are more connected to God. Women are more connected to morality than men are, which is why women produce children, right? God knew that men were flawed beings. And so because men are so flawed, men can't produce children. But producing children makes women more like God. God creates man, mothers create babies, right? Because of that, women have to be pious because they're going to teach the children how to be God-fearing. Does that make sense? Right? Men are going to spend a lot of time in factories and stuff, right? And so men are going to be talking about all sorts of stuff. And the devil's going to get in those conversations. And the devil's going to make those men talk about, alcohol and sleeping around and politics and fighting and whatever dumb things guys talk about, right? Football or something, right? That the devil's going to convince the guys to talk about a bunch of garbage where the devil's not living in your house. Your house is ruled by the woman who is more connected to God. Okay, this is this like form of sexism that women are better than men in this ways, right? This also is going to lead into the concept that women need to be protected and that women are fragile and that women are, this is where you get the idea of chivalry, right? Like I have to protect the woman. I open the car door for her because she would never, she shouldn't have to touch the dirtiness of the door, right? It's because she's so pure and pious. This is where it's getting into this like sexist idea. Okay. Do you guys have questions about this stuff?
Could you go over the development of workers groups again?
Oh yeah, we didn't go into that much. So the development of workers groups, do I even put it on here? All right, so this is going to be these are workers groups which will later be unions. It'll later become labor unions. They're not calling themselves unions yet. These are the very first time that workers outside of the home are working together, trying to demand better wages and working conditions. The other thing you need here is this usually does not include immigrants. It usually does not include immigrants and never includes slaves. Are we good? All right. Everyone took the quiz today. They took the quiz 3.1. 3.1 quiz. It's on the cult of domesticity. It's on the reading. All right. I would like you guys to log in and take the quiz today. I'd like to have you log in and take the quiz today, please. The code is blue. Like the color blue. BLUE, blue. All right. So just log in, take the quiz, and I'll grade it. I'm gonna that'll be good. All right. I'm gonna say this again for everyone, especially Anika's in the group. Take it today, not like 3 weeks from now. Are we good? Okay. All right. Eric has taken 5 quizzes in the time it takes Anika to take 1 quiz. All right.
I
Or
swear
Siobhan.
it's not on purpose. It just kind of just happens. Like I'm like, okay, I'll take it, and then I don't take it. I don't know how it works.
Well, so right now, as soon as we hang up right now, log in and take it. Okay? All right. Do any of you guys have questions? Going once? Questions going twice? I'm going to stop the recording now.